The Tigers land a massive safety commit. Could another be on the way this week? We're talking about it. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Glad to have you aboard with us here. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts. So please subscribe to the pod. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. Brian Kelly and the Tigers continue doing work. On Saturday afternoon, LSU lands a commitment for 2026 safety Aiden Hall out of Edna Carr in New Orleans. So on today's episode, I do want to talk a good bit about Aiden Hall, why it's impactful, the future of the safety position, and a 2025 target who says he's ready to commit, and LSU could very well be at the top of his list. Let's start, though, with the news about Aiden Hall. So Aiden Hall is a 2026 safety. So he's entering his junior year at Edna Carr in New Orleans. And this is no matter what scouting service you subscribe to, this is a top-tier blue chip recruit. In the composite, he is number 54 nationally, the 6th best safety in the country, and the 5th best player in Louisiana for 2026. The lowest he is ranked is the 7th best safety in the country by ESPN, which has him number 106 overall. His highest ranking is by On3, number 51 in the country, and the 5th best safety. So you're talking about whatever scouting service you look at, they all agree consensus, 6 foot, 175 pounder, entering his junior year, one of the best at his position in the country. He was recruited by Frank Wilson primarily. Of course, although Frank is an offensive coach, the running backs coach, Frank Wilson is New Orleans high school royalty. And if anybody is going to go try to pop a commit out of the city of New Orleans, Frank Wilson better be leading the charge. And then also the secondary recruiter was Jake Olson. Remember, Jake Olson is LSU's new safeties coach. Corey Raymond coaching corners, Jake Olson coaching the safety. So they were the ones that got in here. And it's interesting, looking at some of the interviews that Aiden Hall did after his commitment, he said LSU was always his dream school, his number one choice from the beginning. And once he got the offer, it was an easy decision. But he had offers from everybody. You go look at the offer list. LSU, I'll just don't need to remember this, but I'll run through it. LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State, Oregon, Georgia, Southern Cal, Florida, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Duke, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, Texas, Georgia Tech, Purdue, UCF, TCU, Cincinnati, Alabama, Tennessee, Baylor, Missouri, and a partridge in a pear tree. So everybody wants this kid, okay? I often say don't necessarily just look at the star rating of the ranking, look at who has offered the player, and that tells you a lot more about the interest there. So Aiden Hall commits to LSU. When we start to look at the 2026 class for LSU, something that is just stunning when you look at it. LSU now has 4 commits for the class of 2026. Aiden Hall, Richard Anderson, Jalen Chapman, Ja'Kai Anderson. All 4 not only from all 4 not only from Louisiana, all 4 from New Orleans. Aiden Hall and Richard Anderson from Edna Carr, Jalen Chapman at Warren Easton, and Ja'Kai Anderson at McDonough 35. So 4 commits already. And one of the reasons I'm going to continue stressing this, because I think it's so important that we continue to understand that this has to be what is going to lead for LSU recruiting in the next 12 months. It's looking at the state of Louisiana for 2026. 2026 is one of those years that you get every so often, and I know this is repetitive for some who listen to the show, but once every decade or so, you'll get a year like this. And when you get a year like this in Louisiana, you've got to put a fence around the state and protect it at all costs. Jakeem Stewart, the number 4 player in the country in the composite from St. Aug. Lamar Brown from U High, the number 5 player in the country. Blaine Bradford from Catholic in Baton Rouge, the number 13 player in the country. Bryson Martinez from East Ascension, the number 46 player in the country. Aiden Hall's committed. Jabari Mack out of Destrehan, the number 78 player in the country. Richard Anderson's committed, number 131 nationally. You get the point. And when I look at the top 11 Really, if you go down to Ja'Kai Anderson at 14, really, of the players LSU's in on, they're leading on all of them in the eyes of the industry experts. So LSU has got to make sure they land this class. And when you're already getting a jump start on 2026 and you got 4 commitments and they're all top players in Louisiana and they're all committed, it could have a Pied Piper effect for the rest of those guys. So Brian Kelly and his staff doing great work early for the class of 2026. Now, I do want to talk specifically about the safety position because that's obviously where Aiden Hall is going to play. But remember, he's not going to be on campus until 2026. So follow me here. Obviously, as we talk about LSU trying to rebuild DBU, yes, better coaching, better scheme, all that's going to matter. Corey Raymond coming in, playing press man, instilling some real intensity back into that secondary. It's attitude that's going to matter. But coaching and attitude and discipline's only going to get you so far. Eventually and ultimately, you have to have the players. You have to have Derek Stingley and Tre'Davious White and Jamal Adams and Patrick Peterson and Morris Claiborne and Tyrann Mathieu. You've got to have those guys if you want to be one of the best secondaries in America. And so you can see that LSU is starting to rebuild as you just kind of map out the safety position. So let's look at this season in 2024, right? Sage Ryan and Major Burns are seniors here in 2024, but the asterisk is on Major Burns because he's playing that star position. Now, Juwan Johnson's a freshman, but he's also playing that star position. Jordan Gilbert is a redshirt junior, so it's his 4th year in college, so he could come back for another season, but you could be losing Jordan Gilbert as well after this season. Jordan Allen, Kylan Jackson, Joel Rogers, Austin Osbury, who transferred in from Auburn, and then Deshaun Spears, as he goes by now. So Ryan, Gilbert, Burns, Allen, Johnson, Jackson, Rogers, Osbury, Spears. That's 9 safeties for 2024. 9 safeties. After this season, you're losing Sage Ryan, you're losing Major Burns, they're out of eligibility. You could lose Jordan Gilbert as well to the draft. So in theory, without any other transfers, you would return 6 safeties for 2025. We'll see how that goes. And I think one of the things, especially positions like receiver and defensive back, where you have so many players, you have to continue recruiting numbers because you're going to expect transfers. Look at what has happened at LSU at the receiver position. You've brought in transfers, but you've almost had to bring in transfers because of the amount of outgoing transfers. I think the same thing is going to be true in the secondary. At least you have to prepare for that possibility, if not inevitability. So, for 25, you're losing, say, Ryan, Major Burns, possibly Jordan Gilbert, and you're going to return some good players. I mean, we're excited about Deshaun Spears, Jordan Allen, Joel Rogers, Juwan Johnson, Kylan Jackson, Austin Osbury, guys that maybe don't have a ton of playing time, but you look at some high-end prospects like Jordan Allen, like Deshaun Spears, like Juwan Johnson, Joel Rogers. Kylan Jackson, of course, was one of the first, our biggest commits for the 2023 class. So you continue to see those guys go. But remember, right now for 2025, LSU only has 1 safety committed in Jace Thomas. Now, we're going to talk about the next 2025 target in a second. And Jonah Williams and CJ Jim Coy could change those numbers a bit. But again, you have to prepare for the possibility, if not the inevitability, that some of those guys might end up hitting the transfer portal. So even if you do end up saying, hypothetically, getting Thomas, Jim Coy, Jonah Williams all committed for 2025, what's to say all of the guys who could return for 2025 do? You would probably anticipate losing 1 or 2 to the transfer portal. So you got to keep supplementing those numbers. 2026 feels like a long way away, but for 2 major reasons, it's important to get Aiden Hall now. 1, of course, you got to get the best players in the state for 2026. And 2, you have to build numbers at positions like the secondary, receiver, where you expect to have massive turnover year after year, not only because of the draft, but also with the transfer portal. So there is another prospect, as we mentioned, for 2025 who's set to commit this week. I want to talk about him as we continue here on Locked on LSU, your team every day. Passion, drive, and patience. That is what you get with eBay Motors. Love telling you every single day. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You know, I love sports. I know you do as well. It's literally why you're watching or listening to this show. You know, the summer pops up, the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, the sports aren't sporting like we want them to, but FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is dream up bets, open the app, and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone all summer long, so head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. As a matter of fact, if I pop open the FanDuel app right now, and I always tell you to make sure you take advantage of those great boosts and bonuses, why wouldn't you? That the book is giving you these opportunities. So make sure you open up the FanDuel app and you can check out the daily boost and bonus. New customers bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. You've got MLB no sweat same game parlays, a 30% profit boost on MLB baseball, on international hoops as well. If you're watching the Olympics, you can check it all out at FanDuel. So make sure you download the FanDuel app. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. FanDuel, great partners here on Locked on LSU. Okay. So as we wrap up here and we're talking about the safety position, CJ Jim Coy has told On3 and other publications that he is set to make his announcement this week. And he says it's down to 2 programs. And it's thought to be LSU and Stanford. Now it's Tennessee and Oklahoma and Louisville and lots of other big-time schools have been in on Jim Coy. He's out of Lipscomb Academy in Nashville, Tennessee. He's 6'3", 210. So, again, this is another safety that LSU's in on. In the composite, he ranks number 389 in the country, the 36th best safety. But, again, the thing I'll often say is, do you trust your staff who's evaluating this talent to get the right guys in to recruit and develop, and then look at the offer list? When I look at CJ Jim Coy, it may come down to LSU Stanford, but there's Tennessee and Oklahoma and Auburn and Michigan and Penn State and Ole Miss and Michigan State, Alabama, Texas A&M, Nebraska, Florida. I mean, he's got offers from everybody. I mean, there's 50 offers on this list. So everybody's in on this guy from sea to shining sea, including the really elite academic schools and then the great football programs as well. So CJ Jim Coy set to make his announcement this week, and we are expecting, if you look at the crystal ball and the on3 RPM, Jim Coy is thought to be an LSU lean at this point. And as a matter of fact, the on3 RPM, that's the recruiting prediction machine, gives LSU an 80% chance of landing Jim Coy. The next closest is Stanford at 4.5%. So it's going to come down to very likely LSU and Stanford, 2 very different experiences, 2 very different leagues. If you go to Stanford, of course, now you're playing in the ACC from the West Coast. And you know, Jake Olson and Frank Wilson have been the lead here. Of course, the primary being Jake Olson, the safeties coach at LSU. So it's inverted from what we were just talking about with Aiden Hall, who's a kid from New Orleans, where Frank Wilson was taking the lead. Here you've got Jake Olson taking the lead on Jim Coy. And again, he came here from Missouri, had been recruiting Jim Coy as well. So Aiden Hall commits for the class of 2026. LSU only 1 commit at safety so far for 2025. But that could change with CJ Jim Coy set to make his announcement this week, and we are expecting it'll be LSU. Whenever we do get that announcement, you better believe we'll be talking about it right here on Locked on LSU. We appreciate you for being here with us. Remember, if you're on podcast, subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a video. And be sure to tell a friend if they love the Tigers, especially with football season here now. Make sure you got us every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.